Hello everyone, welcome to the Whirlpool preview of day one of the Irish Champions Festival. Plenty to look forward to in terms of prize money, €2.5 million worth. Plenty of runners are taking up the engagement as well. Let's crack on straight away with race one. This is the trip for race one, 1,500 metres for the Ballylynch Stud Irish EBF Ingabel Stakes. A good field on offer as well. Let's have a look at who has taken up the engagement. Apricot Ice for Joe Lyons, Content, Aidan O'Brien, a really interesting contender. Elegant Madam, Dominic French-Davies, Grand Job, Joseph O'Brien. Natalia Lupini has a couple, Kitty Rose and Making Time. And Nemont for Joseph O'Brien, Question of Class, Jim Bolger. See the Boss, a quick turnaround for Jesse Harrington's filly. And Serious Notions, Joe Lyons. Joining us here in the studio, Graham Cunningham and Martin Dwyer. It's a really interesting race. Let's dive straight into a little bit of content.
Yeah,
Graham.
Let's have a look at Content and Apricot Ice. And this was a case of an experienced filly beating a newcomer, Martin. But the more I look at this video, the more I think that Content, superb pedigree, Galileo out of Mecca's Angel, should be the one from this race, because it seemed as if Apricot Ice knew her job pretty well, but all the way to the line, it seemed to me at least, that Content was holding. What do you think?
Yeah, Content is a class act. She was disappointing at Royal Ascot, but she's bounced back here over 1,400 at Leopardstown, and she was never going to be beaten. Really smart filly, galloped out well, strong to the line, always in command.
Yeah, I have to think that she'll confirm that form. Whether she'll be good enough depends on how much improvement one or two of the more lightly raced fillies can make.
Well, let's have a look at another one, Kitty Rose, who's really impressive on debut. Let's see it now, Graham. What did you think of this?
I was impressed by this. She's trained by an up-and-coming handler called Natalia Lupini, a couple of fancied runners on this weekend's card. And it was the way she tanked through this race. Easier ground here, Martin, but she moved through this race like a filly who's well above average.
You mentioned Natalia Lupini. She started really strongly as a trainer. She's only been training a few years. This filly wasn't unsupported this day. She beat the Hot Pot in second. Big, strong, scopy filly with plenty of improvement in her. Stepping up an extra 200 metres won't be a problem.
Yeah, she strung them out in really good style. I have to think that form alone gives her a good chance, but the likelihood is she's capable of much better yet.
One race, one win for her. See the Boss is in a similar category as well. I would maybe argue, though, that the level of form that we saw here might not necessarily on paper match up to a few of the others in here.
I think that's a fair point, but it is interesting, as Anthony touched on in the intro, Martin. It's a real quick turnaround. She only made her debut at Tipperary last Sunday, and she looked a strong galloper rather than a quick, and she was well on top late on, and it's a quick turnaround for an inexperienced one.
It is. She's by See the Moon, bred to get a little bit further, but what I liked about this filly this day is I just thought she showed a good acceleration to get away from the second and third, and I think that will stand her in good stead going forward.
So, selection time. What are we going to be going for, Graham?
Kitty Rose on top for me, number 5. I was really taken with that win first time out. Content looks to have the runs on the board already. She's uncomplicated. She's bound to run well. 4, Grand Job, disappointed last time, but first time out she looked really promising. And 7, Nemonte, 2 wins from 4 starts. But Kitty Rose, the big improver for me, Martin. What do you like?
I'm going to go for Content at the top, number 2. I thought she's just the class act in the race. And I'm going to go for Kitty Rose, number 5, to finish second. See the Boss, number 9, to finish third. And I think Apricot Ice will run well, as she did behind Content, but she'll finish 4th.
I actually think the other way. I think Apricot Rose might have the requisite improvement to go by. The conditions of the race should suit quite well. You can't have won a listed race, can't have placed in a group race. So Joe Lyons, who's won the last 2 renewals of this, is taking a shot to nothing, really running her. And I think Apricot Ice could be the one. That was the Ingabel Stakes, which starts off the card, race 1 on day 1 of the Irish Champions Festival. The KPMG Juvenile Champion Stakes is a really interesting contest year on year, and this is no exception. Let's have a look at the trip that they'll be going over. It's a 1,600 metre trip, and usually you're looking for one with a little bit of longevity going forward if they're going to be staying 1,600 as a 2-year-old. Here are the decks: Atlantic Coast, Bad Desire, Joseph O'Brien, his 2 representatives, Bremen for his brother Donica. Father Aidan has Capulet in there, along with Diego Velasquez and Democracy. Paddy Toomey, that shrewd operator, has Deep One in here, looking to get back on the winning trail. And Formal Display, a lightly raced type from Joe Lyons, completes the 8 declared field. Diego Velasquez, well, he's garnered a lot of interest before he even hit the track. Let's see him in action. What did you make of this, Graham?
Pretty impressive. Aidan O'Brien's won this race with Australia and Auguste Rodin, 2 Derby winners in recent years. Maybe this is another middle distance star. He ducked a bit left at the start. He took a little while to engage top gear, but he piled it on late in the piece, and you have to think the step up to a mile should suit him well, Martin.
Absolutely. How could you not be impressed with this horse? Big strapping son of Frankel, 4 white socks. He's very extravagant the way he gallops. He was a bit raw and a bit green, but if you look, the last 200 metres of this race, he's really flying. I think he's a really smart horse.
As usual, Ballydoyle have the ability to shape the race. They have 2 or 3 in there. I think the stronger gallop, the better for Diego. But it is perhaps round a bend, a slightly different test. 2.4 million, bred to be a good horse, but he's a half to Point Lonsdale and to Broome. He's bred to be a really good horse next year over middle distances.
And maybe there might be one in the here and now in the form of Atlantic Coast, who was a really strong traveller on debut and then kicked on when required.
Same course, same distance as that which Diego made his debut. Different day and a slower time than Diego, but I was impressed by this, Martin. It's difficult to stack up the form. 2nd, 3rd and 4th were all really well bred, but really well bred newcomers. What I liked about Atlantic Coast was change of gear. He showed a turn of foot. He looks a bright prospect.
Again, he was a little bit green, wasn't he? As you said, same distance as Diego Velasquez, same course, and a little bit more workmanlike, not as flashy as Diego Velasquez, but I thought he put the race to bed quite nicely when he was asked.
It's a fascinating contest for the fact that you've got Deep One in here, who I don't think soft ground was anything what he wanted when he was last seen in action. Return to quicker ground, I think Connections will be hoping makes the difference.
Yeah, he's got experience. He had a handful of runs already, 2 from 3. He was 1 to 6 when he won at Killarney, but this second behind Joseph O'Brien's Warney at Tipperary in a listed race reads pretty well. He didn't lead this time either, which he had done the time before. I wouldn't be surprised to see him right on the speed. Paddy Toomey's such a canny operator. I have to think he's a place contender, Martin.
Absolutely, he's solid. He's rated 100 on official ratings, and this is a step up. We're seeing him finish 2nd in a listed race here, so he's on the upgrade. He's already won twice and over course and distance.
Time for selections for the KPMG Champion Juvenile. Diego Velasquez on top for you, Graham?
No, he isn't. I have to try and think about the way the Whirlpool market will shape up. Diego, I think, has to be a short price favourite. That could leave a little room for value. I'm going to go with number 1, Atlantic Coast. I was impressed by him first time out. 7, Diego in for 2nd. 5, Deep One. He's a useful horse. And 4, Capulet, another Aidan horse who was pretty impressive first time on the all-weather. 1, 7, 5, 4. Martin Dwyer, I bet you're with Diego, aren't you?
I am, of course. I think he's a lovely, big, flashy colt by Frankel. Big price tag. I think he'll improve on his first run, and he's drawn in stall 3, which will really help him. Sorry, stall 2, which will really help him around Leopardstown short track. So got to be Diego Velasquez for me. Number 7, Atlantic Coast. Number 1 will chase him home in 2nd. 3rd will be the reliable Deep Pone, and I think Formal Display, the runner-up to Atlantic Coast last time, will finish 4th.
Fascinating contest. I couldn't really see past Diego Velasquez for me. I'm hoping that we see that he sits close enough and travels away strongly and then kicks away strongly as well, with the prospect of even better to come for next year. Cost a pretty penny. Time to start making a bit of it back in the KPMG Champion Juvenile. Race 2 on the card. One of the most important fillies and mares Group 1 races in the entire calendar, the Coolmore America Justify Matron Stakes. Always a fascinating race to look at. This year, absolutely no different. Let's take a look at the trip. 1,600 metres for some of the best fillies and mares around in England and Ireland to do battle on. Let's have a look at who's turned up. Homeless Songs, who was taking part in this race last year, is back for more. Dermot Weld, not the first string from the stable though. More on her in a second. Jumbly, Joseph O'Brien, Just Beautiful, Paddy Toomey, Prosperous Voyage, Rafe Beckett, Rogue Millennium, looking for that elusive Group 1 for Tom Clover. Caddo Bell, the unexposed one in here. Johnny Murta, Clever and Cool, having a great season for Jim Bolger. Gozen, Michael O'Callaghan, Meditate on the comeback trail for Aidan O'Brien in first-time headgear. Ocean Jewel, Willie McCurry, Olivia Moralda, Roger Varian, Tahira, the headline act, and the first string for Dermot Weld, and Zarinsk rounding them off for Jer Lyons. Well, Galloping Clue's very much at a premium, and as this is a fillies and mares race for 3-year-olds and older, guineas. Let's take a look at Tahira in runner-up action, Graham.
Yeah, 3-year-olds have held the edge in this race for quite a while now. I wasn't shocked to see Tahira beaten here because Dermot Well seldom has his stars really fired up in the early spring. In the circumstances, Martin, thought she ran really well to chase on Morge. First two well clear.
Yeah, I think this was a great performance to finish second. Morge had the benefit of coming from Dubai, where she'd been running through the winter, and she just had a racing under her belt, and I think Tahira just improved from this, and they were a long way clear of the third.
Among the beaten posse that day was Meditate, and Meditate came back for another crack and ran better in the Irish 1,000 guineas. But Tahira makes things look easy. Her rider, Chris Hayes, always says it's like riding in slow motion in a good race because she does things so naturally. And that Stork and Pounce turn of foot style, that sealed the deal really nicely at the Curragh.
Well, Tahira, she possesses quite a lot of gear change, and it gets you out of trouble, and she was stuck in a pocket here and she managed to get out, and she's got tactical speed which will suit her down to the ground at Leopardstown.
She went from there to win at Royal Ascot. It was the same deal again. Stork and Pounce. Meditate was in the field again, but Martin will testify to this. When Tahira comes up against Meditate, it's a bit like Man City v Everton. It's 4-0 to the champion.
She normally beats Meditate every time. Meditate runs a close, but Tahira's a class act.
I think Meditate has blinkers for the first time. That's intriguing this weekend.
It is. We haven't seen Tahira for 2 months though, and in that time Zarinsk has started to move up the grades. Penultimate start, Group 3. Last start, a Group 2.
Yeah, she goes really well at Leopardstown, Zarinsk. She's got plenty of experience now, Martin. She's 5 from 9, including this 1,400-metre Group 2 last time. It was game, it was really praiseworthy, but it was a bit of a bunch finish, Martin. The second and third haven't really polished the form. What I'm trying to say is this looks a deeper pond.
It is a deeper pond. I think she'll run well though, because I do think she's learning to settle better, this filly. She's stepping back up to 1,600 metres in the Matron Stakes, but I think she's mentally able to cope with that distance better now as the season's gone on.
Yeah, she's bound to be in the mix from the start. Like Martin, I think she'll run well. Possibly 1, 2, maybe 3 to beat her.
Now go back 104 days and the Landwade Stud Stakes saw Just Beautiful in winning action. Haven't seen her since then.
Yeah, this is a possible slight concern, but there's no doubt that she really clicked on this day. And cast your mind back to this day 12 months ago, gents. Paddy Toomey, hard-knocking front runner, won this race, and this is cut from a similar cloth. She cost 620 grand when she was bought from England. This is her best form so far. I think she's bound to run a really good race. So this is one I think certainly after a break as a place contender.
I think she ran well this day, Graham, but I couldn't help feel she got the run of the race, and I'm not sure she'll get that in the Matron Stakes. I think she'll run well, but I can't see her in the form myself. I think that was her day in the sunshine for me.
Pearls Galore was the Toomey filly whose name I was scrambling for there. I think he's got another player again here.
What about the claims of Homeless Songs? Remember, cast your mind back 12 months ago, she was a beaten favourite, a short price beaten favourite in this.
Yeah. Is she a soft ground filly? Is she as good as she once was? Her rating, 119, which gives her a great chance, Anthony, comes from a dominant Irish 1,000 guineas win. Since then, 5-4 favourite in this race last year, flat. But this was a better performance, first time out. We haven't seen her since. A couple of question marks, but on her day, Homeless Songs is a genuine Group 1 filly, Martin. Yeah,
last year's Guineas winner. I think she's on the comeback trail. I'm not sure the ground suited her. It was pretty heavy this day. Myself, I think she's running as a bit of a prep for the Sun Chariot Stakes at Newmarket. I can see her running really well without winning.
Graham, come to you first for your selections. You mentioned the 3-year-olds have an interesting record in this race. Does it carry on with Tahira?
I hope so. I think Tahira's the one here. That turn of foot, as Martin mentioned, tends to settle all the arguments at the top level. I think it can do so again here. 3 Just Beautiful on the front end from the start and to stay there for a long while. 1 Homeless Songs and 13 Zarinsk. But Tahira is one of the star attractions of the entire weekend.
And Martin, yourself?
Tahira for me, I agree with Graham. She's got the class and she's got the tactical speed you need in a tight race on a tight track like Leopardstown. So yeah, I think Tahira wins, number 12 at the top. I think Meditate will run second again. I think the blinkers will improve her enough to run Tahira close enough but not good enough. I think Zarinsk, 13, will finish third. She's learning to settle. I think she'll run a good race. I think Homeless Song will run into 4th place as a nice little stepping stone for Newmarket.
I think Tahira's got an excellent chance in here. I'm just reticent to be taking a potentially very short price about a horse who had a hard race and had 2 months off and is taking on her elders for the first time. Every time that she goes to the races, Rogue Millennium is disrespected in the betting, and I wonder if the same will be today, and one at a slightly juicier price who might be able to at least pick up a little bit of prize money, if not take the whole thing and get Tom Clover a well-deserved Group 1. We'll see in the Coolmore America Justify Matron Stakes. It's a fascinating race, year on year, no different this one. The Royal Bahrain Irish Champion Stakes is a race usually to savour. It's a stallion-making race. The winner gets €712,000, but it's not about the money in the racing career, it's what it can do for you at stud. Let's have a look at the trip that they'll be facing over the 2,000 metres over at Leopardstown. Let's have a look at who's turning up as well. There are a couple of notable admissions that you'd like to have seen. Nonetheless, some proper names in here. Alflaila going up the grades for Owen Burrows. Luxembourg, last year's winner, back for more for Aidan O'Brien. Ernesto, fascinating contender for Fabrice Chappé. Aidan O'Brien once again. Point Lonsdale. Nashwa, super filly for Jonathan Thady Gosden. Joseph O'Brien sends Al Rifa, another really interesting contender who we might not have seen the best of. Auguste Rodin. Well, it'll be fascinating to see which one of him turns up for Aidan. Roger Varian has King of Steel. Auguste Rodin was in front of him in the Derby, and Sprewell rounds them off. Derby form usually at a premium. Let's take a look back and take in a couple of additions, Graham.
Talk about a polarising horse. Talk about Auguste Rodin, who was abysmal first time in the 2,000 guineas, was tremendous in the Derby where he guns down King of Steel in a tremendous duel through the final quarter mile. He was solid in the Irish Derby, a confusing race, a tactical race, but he won it. And then he was atrocious in the King George, virtually pulled up in the home straight. So my question to you, Martin Dwyer, and it's not an easy one to answer, which Auguste Rodin will turn up this weekend?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? If anyone can do it, Aidan O'Brien can do it. Don't forget, he flopped in the Guineas and bounced back here to win the Derby. But as you say, I was at Ascot at the King George when he walked across the line, so it was very hard to see him coming back. This is the Irish Derby win. This was quite workmanlike compared to his English Derby win. I say Adelaide River in second, who's a solid performer, but I'd expected to see a bit more of his class on this day. I thought this was, it sounds terrible to say, but a bit of an average win, Graham.
Yeah. It's a massive feel thing with this horse. He must be working well, otherwise he wouldn't be running. But while we touch on Auguste Rodin, Martin, we also need to touch on King of Steel, who's a big, gorgeous-looking horse. He's only had 5 runs in his career. He ran a screamer at Epsom. He won really well in the King over the 7th, and then he put everything into an excellent third in the King George. My question is, can he back that up? Because it was a pretty tough workout at Ascot. You like him, don't you? I
do like him, and this is the thing. We're all guessing at, has he come out of that race? Has it taken too much out of him? Because it was billed as the race of the generations, the King George, and there was no hiding place. It was a fast run race, and he had a hard race. But his jockey Kevin Stott has maintained throughout this season, King of Steel will be much better at 2,000 metres. Yeah. He's a big horse, but he's got gears. I like him. I do.
Just a quick stat. You have to go back to 1995 for the last time a non-Group 1 winner won the Irish Champion Stakes. And as things stand, Anthony, King of Steel is not a Group 1 winner.
Let's see if he can buck the trend. A couple of 3-year-old colts to look forward to. Which ones will turn up? Well, I think we can be pretty certain we know which kind of Nashwa will turn up. She's been in scintillating form this season. She hasn't always... I mean, the Falmouth win was impressive, Graham. Over this kind of test, though, I just wonder if she's just below top class.
She could be, but she's top on BHA ratings with the sex allowance. She's top on Racing Pulse ratings, and she's top on Time Form ratings. She split 2 of Europe's best horses in Mostadaf and Paddington last time. There's no Mostadaf here. There's no Paddington here. She promised to be suited by a really well-run race. In short, I think Nashwa is overpriced, Martin.
Possibly. She's a real solid performer. She's a dual Group 1 winner, but interestingly, she's never won a Group 1 level against the Colts, and I have a feeling
she's only had one go. That was her first ever go.
No, she's ran twice against Colts. She's never beaten Colts, and I think it'll be the same again today.
It'll be interesting to see. Let's have a look at last year's renewal. Graham, in your opinion, if the same Luxembourg and the same Ernesto turn up, will they be involved?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Involved, but not necessarily first and second like last year. This is a key angle. Stone Age was the pace setter for Coolmore last year. He was in to do a very solid job for Luxembourg, and he did it. Luxembourg and Anesto come out of the pack at about the same time. They fight out a really good tussle as Verdini finds trouble towards the inside. But it's all a bit hurried, it's all a bit bunched, Martin. Is this form good enough to finish first and second again this time around?
I think this year's renewal is a stronger race, Graham. I don't know what you think. Luxembourg is solid. He did well to win a 5 or 6 runner race in the Tats Gold Cup. Got the runner race that day to beat Bay Bridge. I can see them both running well, but I can't see them being in the first 3.
Luxembourg has 3 lengths to find with King of Steel on King George form. Ernesto has been lightly raced since last year, and he caught many people's eye over a mile first time out in France.
So far we've only been talking about Group 1 form. Let's take a look at a horse who's been going up the rungs, and that is Alflaila. What chance here? Yeah,
he's a slightly under the radar horse, but he keeps winning, Alflaila. And Owen Burrows has been doing really well with these Shadwell older horses. This performance was of a type, really. He's always held up, Martin. He can hit a little flat spot, but when he finishes, he doesn't half come with a charge. But I wonder whether that run style will lend itself well to Leopardstown.
That's a good point, isn't it? He's a very progressive horse. He's been supplemented to run in this race, so Connections feel he's on the upgrade, but look at his turn of foot here. That is no easy task at York, and horses are getting away from you on fast ground. He's got to find improvement stepping up to Group 1 level, but he does look like he's finding improvement.
The faster they go, the better he'll like it.
Well, I can't guarantee the winner, but I can guarantee there's going to be a difference of opinion with selections. Graham, you first?
I think it's going to be heads and necks. I think there's going to be at least one hard luck story. I think it's going to be a riveting race. So with that maximum confidence, I think we might be in for a little bit of history, Anthony. I don't think a female jockey has ever won a Group 1 race on the flat in Ireland. We could have it this weekend with Holly Doyle and Nashua, number 5 on top from number 7. Who knows about August Rodin, but I think he might bounce back. Number 1, Alflaila to come on strong late on, and number 2, Luxembourg. But I know the man next to me has a very different view.
We disagree, don't we? I think number 8, King of Steel. I think Connections have been dying to run him back at 2,000 metres. He doesn't lack in any department. He's got to change a gear for a big horse. He's a Derby second. The jockey felt he would have won over 2,000 metres that day, so he would have come into the race a Group 1 winner. I think Alflaila, the improving horse, will finish second, number 1. I think Al Rifet, probably overlooked. He was second to Ace Impact on his return run in France last time. It was a great run, beaten 3/4 of a length. And I think the mare, Nashua, will run a great race in 4th.
I'm hoping that no international travel can mean that we can see Auguste Rodin back in the winners' enclosure. As we've said before, it's a case of which one turns up. I'm hoping to see the one that was in sparkling form at Epsom. And while workmanlike in the Irish Derby, he still got the job done. And I think if he is to win, it'll probably be a similar thing. No matter which way you look at it, it's sure to be a fiery renewal of the Irish Champion Stakes. Well, it might be a Group 2, but it's one of the most valuable Group 2s you're going to find. The Dullingham Park Stakes is over 1,600 metres. Let's take a look at the trip that they'll be taking over this slightly easier a mile than you might find at some other tracks. A speed favouring track at Leopardstown. Let's have a look at who is turning up. Well, Victoria Road on the comeback trail. We've only seen him once, this son of Saxon Warrior, so far. A second run today for Aidan O'Brien this season. Buckaroo, course and distance winning form, always at a premium here for Qatar Racing, Oisin Murphy and Joseph O'Brien. And Bold Discovery as well, who's on a comeback trail of his own, the son of Bolt d'Oro. Well, Bolt d'Oro, an American horse, Breeders' Cup form we can have a look at here for Victoria Road. And Graham, this was a great performance. I actually really like watching this back.
Yeah, it's a fun race to watch. Whether it was a really deep Group 1, I'd have my doubts, but he was on a roll at this time, Victoria Road. He'd won a pretty good Group 3 race in France. What he showed here, Martin, was that he's got that tactical speed and an ability to go zip late on.
Absolutely. He still had a bit of work to do from turning in, and he managed to nip through the runners, and I think this horse really likes a sharp turning track like Leopardstown. He's got a real good change of gear, and this was at the end of a long season as well.
Had a 9-month break, came back in France in a pretty good race, finished 7th of 8. That's a springboard for him. Jockeys have just come through. Ryan Moore rides Victoria Road. That seems significant.
Very much so. Buckaroo has already had more than a sighter of the track. He's had a winning sighter of the track. Homeless Songs, who is taking the matron, was in behind this day. What did you make of this?
I'd like this performance. Now, he's been off the track for 81 days. May have been a slight problem, but he's consistent. He's a good class horse. I don't think this is the deepest Group 2 overall. Very close fourth in a Group 1 in France, third at Royal Ascot. And this performance at Leopardstown early on in the season marks him out as a horse who should go well here. He's not got an instant turn of foot, but in terms of Quinellas, trios, etc., I think he's a very strong first three contender.
Yeah, this was a gritty performance. He beats Homeless Songs coming back after a break, and he's pretty tough and versatile. He's not easy to win with. He goes up and down in distances, but he's back down to 1,600 metres, which I think is his best distance. I can see him running a big race.
You just saw 1,600 metres over at Leopardstown, and that was a listed race. Group 3 action next, Lord Massousis, a couple in behind as well.
Yeah, Lord Massousis and Alfred Munnings are the key players here, and I think the pace was very important for the winner. Lord Massousis, he got a really good gallop to run at, threaded his way through from the back of the field. By contrast, Alfred Munnings was on the speed right from start to finish. Look at the way Alfred kicks here. He shows a nice kick to take a length out the field, but Lord Massousis comes and runs him down late. Neither may be good enough here, but of the two, Martin, I think I like Alfred Munnings that little bit more than Lord Massousis.
Yeah, I don't know, I disagree, Graham. We're disagreeing a bit, aren't we, today? But I think Lord Massousis showed he overcome adversity. He was stuck on the rail. I just think he's a real improving three-year-old, this. I think he's won this a little bit cosier than it looks.
Interesting. Also interesting was when Bold Discovery was able to win a Group 3. It was a big shock this day, an 18-1. Tarawa back in second.
Yeah, I was on Whirlpool duty at the Curragh on Irish Derby Day, and it was very noticeable all day long, Martin, that speed was holding out. So Bold Discovery was really cannily ridden here at a big price. He took advantage of the track position. Tarawa kept coming, but could never quite get past. Not much between these two. Would you prefer Bold Discovery or Tarawa?
I think I'd prefer Bold Discovery on this type of ground. I think he suits him fast ground. He went to Goodwood and didn't handle the soft ground at all, but he skips along. Do you see his action? He loves top of the ground, and I'm not sure. I didn't have him down as good enough to win a Group 2, but I think he can run placed on good fast ground.
All right, selection time. Where are you going, Graham?
I'm going to go Buckaroo. He is vulnerable if there's a really good horse in opposition, but I'm not sure there is. It might be Victoria Road. He's in the numbers as well. So is Alfred Munnings and Tarawa. But I'll take my chances after a break with Buckaroo.
Martin?
I'm going to go with Victoria Road. I think he was entitled to need his last run after a long break, and I think he can rediscover his last year's form. I think he's solid.
Buckaroo for me as well. There's plenty to like about him. You need a tough, gritty horse to win this. I'm hoping he's on the pace, or at least close up enough, and will just grind out another victory over course and distance. It's a fascinating Group 2, always is, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the result will bring this year. The Paddy Power Stakes this year, a Group 3 over 1.5 miles, 2,400 metres, has a very competitive look to it. Let's take in the course and see where they'll be racing. It's nearly a full circuit of the track, and some fascinating contenders turning up for this valuable Group 3 prize, €59,000 to the winner. Al Azi for William Haggis very much catches the eye. Adelaide River placed the last twice in Group 1 company, indeed classic company on penultimate start. And the likes of White Birch as well. The last two have previous. Let's have a look at Al Azi in action. He's kind of been a Lazarus-like type figure, hasn't he, Graham? He's very, very much finding the groove now.
Yeah, you have to say he's a reformed character. He used to be very suspect in a finish, but he was gelded a good while ago now, and he's been brought back to 1.25 miles, and here he does what he's best at, stalking, patience, and then a late turn of foot to beat pretty good horse in El Drama. I just wonder about his run style for this course. He has to be smuggled through late, Martin. I'm not sure that's ideal for Leopardstown myself.
He's going to need all the luck in the world, isn't he? He comes out of stall 4. Jim Crowley will be taking his time. He might well get stuck on the inside, but this horse has been a revelation since he dropped back in distance. He was called some nasty names last year, wasn't he? I actually beat him in the coronation, but the horse was at this distance, at 2,400 metres, he's a bit of a non-stayer.
Yeah, he's also got a small penalty, £3 penalty, but we have to factor that in, especially as he's giving plenty of weight to 1 or 2 good 3-year-olds here.
Absolutely. You mentioned the Coronation Cup, and Epps and Downs, we go once again back to Derby form. White Birch was third in this. Adelaide River languishing back in 8th this occasion.
Yeah, Adelaide River was the good soldier for August Rodin on this day, and perhaps paid a penalty to a certain extent. It was a solid gallop, early pacemakers dropped away. White Birch comes on strong late in the piece, the grey horse to the left of picture. They've gone a different direction since. They both ran in the Irish Derby. Adelaide River ran really well. White Birch didn't. I would take Adelaide River over White Birch myself, Martin.
Yeah, Adelaide River, he's been used as pacemaker so many times, and he drops into a race, a Group 3 that he could possibly win. I think White Birch, I really like White Birch. I think, well, this is the Irish Derby this day. White Birch, the big grey horse, you can forget this run for him. Unfortunately, there was a fall in the race that got in his way, so it was a non-event for White Birch. But Adelaide River gallantly battling from the front, and it took August Rodin a long time to wear him down, didn't it?
It did, and Adelaide River, as Martin has articulately stated, runs really well here. He's had another run since in the Grand Prix de Paris, Anthony, and as you know, he ran really, really well. He had the Oaks winner back in third that day. In short, he's a horse who's gone well, really well, in a couple of Group 1s, and he's here in a Group 3 with no penalty. He's the one to beat.
I think so. Some others would take a look at a horse who is fast improving through their 3-year-old career, Valiant King being that type of contender. Let's see him in action. Lafayette was behind the back in 4th, and Valiant King the runner-up this day.
This is a horse I really like. It's just a question of whether he's progressing fast enough to beat the best of this bunch. The horse who beats him here is Melbourne Cup bound and is on everyone's shortlist for the Flemington race. That's Vauban. He never really looks likely to get past Vauban, Martin, but he runs a personal best because he's clear of the remainder.
Absolutely. This is a step up in grade for Valiant King this day. First try in group company, and he's run a tremendous race. But you just look, he's almost half the size of Vauban in front of him, and I think he's going to be half the size of some of the older horses he takes on. I can see him running a mighty race and finishing place, but as you said, Graham, I'm not sure he's improving at the right speed to take it.
Agreed. Strong place contender, should be one to beat him, I think.
Selections starting with you, Graham.
I think it's Adelaide River's race this. No penalty, Group 1 form, uncomplicated ride. He's the one for me, ahead of 6 Valiant King, 1 the tricky, the talented Al Arsi, and 4 White Birch in for 4th.
I'm going to go with White Birch on top, number 4, White Birch to win, the big grey horse. He was a winner of this course early in the year. I think Al Arsi will run 2nd, not quite make it. Adelaide River will run a gallant race in 3rd, and the improving 3-year-old Valiant King will be 4th.
First Adelaide River for you, 3rd for you, 1st for me. I think sometimes dropping back into group company, it can really make the difference, and given that he's put in so many great strides since he's being used more on his merits rather than making the pace for other horses, I think Adelaide River might finally get his day in the sun in the Paddy Power Stakes, a Group 3 over 2,400 metres. The Patingo Premier Handicap is over the unusual distance of 1 mile and 5 furlongs. Let's take a look at that unusual trip. It's not a distance used much in Europe, 2,600 metres and nearly an entire lap of the track. Let's take a look at some of the key contenders. Well, Jack Finbar will immediately stand out. Willie Mullins' contender has faced some even harder starts in recent times. Kialak as well from Mick Halford and Tracy Collins, one of a couple in there. There are 2 pages worth, as you'll notice. 16 have been declared, making a big field handicap. The likes of Merlin Giant very much catching the eye. Comfort Zone, an interesting contender as well. Some of these are dual-purpose horses, having been taken in hurdling campaigns as well as running on the flat. And one of those is Nusrat. He was back on the flat, Graham, and it worked the trick.
Yeah, this is an interesting horse, I think. I'm told by people close to the stable that he is tricky, that he needs to be produced right on the line to produce his very best. But Martin, have a look at the way he just weaves his way, glides his way through this field. Doesn't win by very far, but when you look at the way he travelled to get into contention and recall that he's only been raised £2 for this, handicapper I think has been fair with him.
Absolutely, I agree. It's amazing to think he wins a race of this nature, a Premier Handicap over this distance. It looked like he just jumped in at halfway, travelled there supremely, and a £2 rise for winning a neck. I think he's well ahead of the handicapper.
It was a winning you're in race for the Ebor, but he would have been several pounds out of the handicap. So I think Connections have taken the choice that this is the more likely race for him, and he could still be well handicapped. He'll need the luck and the breaks, but one way or another, Joseph O'Brien has a big role here, I think.
He very much could. You're looking for Premier Handicap when you're trawling through these cards, and Jack Finbar already has that as well. It wasn't winning. He did just get into the fringes of the places, Graham, at the Galway Festival.
Yeah, this was a big handicap at Galway on much softer ground than we're likely to experience at Leopardstown this weekend. Jack Finbar's a weird and wacky, wonderful Willie Mullins story. Used to be trained by Harry Dunlop in England, had 4 years, count them, 4 years off the track at one point. He's come back with some smart form, including a good run at Galway, and he ran pretty well in the Ebor for a long way, Martin, but perhaps not quite well enough, for me at least, to think that he can win this.
Yeah, you'd have to forget his last run at York. That was too bad to be true. Never really travelled into it. He's a solid horse. He was a Group 3 winner in Longchamp last season. And he comes on this day and finishes 4th. This was a good performance considering he was drawn 20, right on the wide outside this day on a very tight track at Galway. And he's a solid performer, but yeah, you'd have to overlook his last run, but he has got it in his locker. And
Willie Mullins has booked a promising young jockey called Frankie Dettori for him.
Let's hope it works out. Willie Mullins to Emmett Mullins next. Merlin Giant, he was also at the Galway Festival. Didn't work out for him in the Premier Grade 3 handicap hurdle he was in. Prior to that, winning form at Down Royal.
Yeah, he ran okay for a long way in the Galway hurdle. We pick him up just winning a maiden here at Down Royal, but he does it in tidy fashion, and it's more a case of respect for the trainer, but I want him in for that reason alone. He's still very lightly raced on the flat, Martin, and I'd like to think there's better to come from this fella.
I think there's improvement to come, and what I like about his credentials, he's got very little weight. He's got 8 stone 7, and he's a front runner over this 2,600 metre distance. So if he gets away on the front end, I think he can run a mighty race.
Good to see him off the mark on the flat. Will he be in your selections, Graham?
Well, I think Joseph O'Brien might hold a key here. Nusret's one I've got to have on side. He's still a well-handicapped horse for my money. But Joseph also runs a horse called Comfort Zone, who's very lightly raced on the flat, and he turned into a really good young hurdler last season. So the fact that he's prepared to run him in a big handicap, fresh after a break, is notable. So I'm going to go Joseph 1-2, 11 Comfort Zone, 8 Nusret, 13 Merlin Giant, and 6 Golden Twilight, a consistent horse. 11, 8, 13, 6. It's a brain burner, Martin Dwyer.
It sure is. It's one of those tight handicaps. I'm going to go with a horse we haven't looked at yet, Kellack, for Mick Halford. He's already won 3 times over this distance of 2,400 metres, and he was beaten last time a neck when he dropped back to 2,000 metres. He's proven over the distance. He has been running at Dundalk, but I think he's still well handicapped to win a race like this. I think number 8, Nurset, will finish 2nd. Jack Finbar, just carrying that top weight, will probably put him in 3rd place, with the young, improving horse Merlin Giant to finish 4th.
You mentioned 2 Joseph O'Brien horses, Graham. I'm going to throw a 3rd into there in Etna Rossa, who we doubtless haven't seen the best of him. He's had some lofty assignments the last twice. This will only be the 5th run of his career, so you're taking his experience and his know-how to navigate a big field completely on trust. But if there's anyone to do that, Joseph O'Brien would be your man. I'm just willing to take a chance on the 99 rated Etna Rossa to maybe have a touch of class in this kind of field. You could pick so many chances here in the Patingo Premier Handicap. Year on year, it throws up a really interesting contest, and this year no different. 1,500 metres is the closing trip for the day 1 of the Irish Champions Festival. Let's have a look at that trip. 1,500 metres, a full field as well. 18 participants going to post. The UK attraction, as ever, has happened once again. David O'Mara is sending 3 over, Bo Pedro, Ross Collin and Darkness. Fascinating contenders, each of them. The home team headed by the likes of Dunham for Natalia Lupini. Let's have a look over the page to our 2nd page of runners. Premier Handicap mainstays, the likes of Current Option in there as well. Ice Cold in Alex, he's due a day. I worry that it probably wouldn't be today. And the likes of Broadhurst as well, an unexposed one for Aidan O'Brien. Let's have a look at a galloping clue. Dunham, he's been one of the stories of the season, Graham. Small stable in Natalia Lupini, and this was a particularly big day.
Can't believe there's a more improved horse in Ireland. There's a few to look at here, and there's also one who finishes way back in green and red, a chestnut horse. You'll see that Hot Rocket gets quite badly hampered. But let's focus on Dunham, who's gone from a mark of 54 to 101. His cruising speed is what catches the eye here. He gives himself every chance to find a good position, then he battles on willingly as a few find trouble in behind. The handicapper is gradually making it harder, but he keeps defying the handicapper, Martin.
He does, and you do wonder when these handicappers keep progressing like they do, when they're going to hit the ceiling. And he's got a £6 raise for this win, but he just does it in fine style. He has the gears to. He looks like a group horse in a handicap.
He tanks through his races. That was his second run of the week at Galway. You look at his record and say, fast ground, is that a concern? He hasn't had a chance to race on it, and as Martin says, the way he moves through his races, it might even suit him.
Fast ground is a slight concern to a point to the likes of Ross Collin, isn't he? Who was 5th in this last year. He does arrive in great winning form, though, unless it was at Goodwood last time.
Yeah, he's been running really well. A at Goodwood, B on soft ground, but I think he handles a faster surface. 5th in 2021, was it 22? 5th last year. He's £7 lower this time around, and his 2 Goodwood wins tell you that he's at least as good as ever, Martin. Big chance.
He's in tremendous form. His 2 wins, and the only blip in the middle was when he had a bad trip at Goodwood and got knocked down. He's a tremendous horse. Again, he's improving at the age of 5. A strong traveller. I think he handles soft ground, but I think he goes on fast ground as well. My only worry with him is he's drawn 16 at Leopardstown. It's a bit of a wide draw.
Yeah, the Brits had 1st and 2nd last year. I think the winner was drawn 1, the second was drawn 19, so it is possible to come from a high draw and run really well.
Absolutely. We just saw a very straightforward success for Ross Collin. The same was the case for Beau Pedro when he was in winning form at Newmarket last time.
Yeah, Beau Pedro has form in this race. For a previous yard, he was 3rd in this race from well back in 2021, and he's up £4 for this Newmarket win. My concern for Beau Pedro would be track position, Martin, because we know he's very strong at the end of stiff mile races, but round a bend over 7, he could get a fair way back, and that's my worry for him.
Yeah, he could. He might well have a bit of ground to make up, and off a mark of 104, he doesn't exactly scream he's well handicapped in a race of this nature. I can see him running well, but I think he's handicapped out of a race like this.
Yeah, I think he could find himself with a lot of ground to make up in the straight, and for that reason I'll be looking elsewhere.
Broadhurst is a really interesting contender. He's back off a layoff since May. Around the same time, the stable and owner won a Premier Handicap with a horse who's turned out to be one of the horses of the season, Paddington. He's probably not in that ilk, but this is encouraging.
Yeah, Aidan O'Brien had lots of possibilities for these big handicaps at Leopardstown on Saturday. Most of them don't run. This fella does. He's a €620,000 sort of no name never. He's only had 4 runs. This was a pretty good handicap in the springtime, Martin, and he was a bit unlucky not to win it.
Yeah, and he looked very promising when the race before when he won at Dundalk, and this day he thought he was going to win, possibly a little bit unlucky, got checked in his run. They haven't wasted time. Aidan has put cheap pieces on him for the first time, so he's not wasting any time with that, but he looks like a horse who's probably a bit better than a handicapper, and he might get back on track.
And if you were connected with that horse and you run like that and you were left on the same mark, you'd be pretty happy about the situation, wouldn't you?
Considering he looked a bit unlucky.
Well, selection time. Really difficult punting race to end the card. Where are you landing?
If Joseph O'Brien doesn't do well in the handicaps this weekend, Anthony, I'm in trouble. I'm going to take a chance with Hot Rocket, who was very unlucky behind Dunham last time, but prior to that he'd been in great form. 12 Broadhurst looks ready to run a big race in the headgear. 4 Dunham is a fixture in these Premier Handicaps. He should run his race again. And 8 Ross Collin. 7, 12, 4, 8 with Hot Rocket, a live long shot, I hope.
How about for the live wire?
I think Dunham, I don't think he's finished yet. Still off this £6 raise. I think he will win again. Progressive handicapper for the really good trainer, Natalie Lupatini. And I think Mick Halford's I Am Superman has dropped to a smart mark. He could run second. Ross Collin will run a great race to finish 3rd from a wide draw. With Broadhurst with the blinkers on will come in 4th.
I'm Superman on top for me is much lower than when he was taking group races in Maidan, and prior to that Michael O'Callaghan had very smartly sent him down under to win a bit of prize money and keep him paying his own way and some, and probably paying for a few of the underperformers as well. Hopefully I'm Superman gets back on track off a mark of 98 in the Sovereign Path Premier Handicap, which closes the card on day 1.